Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next session at the RefoundEd Education Summit. I am so happy to introduce Niko, who is just an incredible person and so patient and high energy and calm at the same time. It's zen. So he's going to be sharing about unlocking the potential of ADHD and embracing the gift-ability.
Amazing. Thank you. And you guys can hear me? Good. Mic is working.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
Ah, amazing. Okay, well, such a pleasure to be here. I had met you, Jeanette, recently, but connect very quickly. And yes, we are definitely refounding education at what it means to be, a teacher and a student, which are kind of yin and yang. They're the same thing. But in this timeline, in the 21st century, and it's a timeline where we are all aware that something has shifted majorly. And if you're tuned to the stars, which is the oldest navigational tool known to humanity, then we know we're shifting ages. And with that, we're also shifting the biologically, not just energetically and spiritually, but biologically. The human cavity resonance is what it's called of this planet, the pulse, basically the heart. It's moving up, it's upgrading, it's leveling up, and it's doing so in the perfect accordance of the Fibonacci sequence. Fibonacci is a mathematician, and it's actually the kind of math that I feel if I was taught and if kids are shown a little earlier, they'd be more interested in things like mathematics because it's about the patterns of nature. And Fibonacci basically is the expression of how nature grows in that spiral. It's called phi, the golden mean ratio, and where we get the word phi for 5 fingers, which is what makes us, of course, unique as humans. But it's this leveling up from 7.8 cycles per second. That was the pulse. That's the frequency, 7.8 cycles per second. To suddenly now in the late 80s, it started shooting up, and we're in and around about 13 cycles per second, which is it's one of this in the actual sequence. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. It's basically the number and the one for it that are added together, and that creates then the number in the sequence. So I know it's a lot of technical term, but just I want to kind of demystify what a lot of people think of as the frou-frou kind of new age talk. There really is like scientific explanation for why this uh, this new wave of we call them crystal children. You can call them rainbow children. There's all kinds of different names, but children of this timeline are so, they're just so advanced, and they're thus inattentive unless really stimulated and really kicking that dopamine. And that's where, of course, having ADHD myself has helped me become the teacher that I am and invent discover this program. I don't want to say invent or author. I feel God is the author of all things. However, I've had the humble, I guess you could say, gift of being able to uh, present this in such a way, kind of like usher this new age in with what I called FiTHOP. So, yeah, basically, all this excess energy that comes with this upgrading that the world is going through comes with it very much. The metaphor I like to use is like an iPhone. Instead of an iPhone 5, we're now like dealing with students, that are children who have iPhone 10s. And that makes them so much smarter than the teacher in terms of their processor and how many apps they can run, because their RAM, which stands for random access memory, interesting, random, right? It's like your attention's everywhere, but it's actually where is it accessing? And that's where we go from ADHD being the curse to ADHD being the gift. And that's where and why I identify the acronym no longer as attention hyperdeficit disorder or attention deficit disorder. Instead, ADD, an alternate drive and destiny. These kids in this timeline are here for something different. It's alternate. And their drive, their motivation, their destiny, it's just different. And ADHD, I just mentioned it earlier, attention dialed in to higher dimensions, which is amazing. The question is, how do we ground that? And what we have is this polarity of ADHD and almost like OCD, because what this is this awareness to all things, almost always in all ways, but then also the ability to zone it all out, and just razor sharp focus on what's at hand. And this is what makes the hunters of our times, if we look this like anthropologically, people with ADHD were essentially the hunters who were in the front lines. They were the ones who were so hyper aware of what is out there that, you know, we could trust that they could lead, because they would hear the moving of the leaves literally to the degree that they knew, oh, there's something behind there. Or just noticing that the, you know, we say butterfly, like that's like the vice of, you know, you're always distracted, but that's how you knew, like based on the things that were happening in nature, we knew what was to come. It foreshadowed whether it was severe weather, or yeah, like the tiger that's hiding behind that bush. So it is truly a gift and or a curse, but like any tool, double-edged sword is how it's used. And I'm just going to try to relate with my as much as my own story and my own experience as I can, because I believe that teaching is ultimately about reaching and not preaching, meaning you're actually sharing what you've experienced. And I feel like what's qualified me to be the teacher that I am, and have the ability to really hone the and harness the attention spans of thousands of students that I've worked with worldwide, is that I too, like them, have this gift and or curse ability. And I only discovered it later in life, much later in life. I actually flew under the radar while I was in school, and I wasn't diagnosed, but I did go and self-diagnose, because in my 30s, when I realized as an entrepreneur, shit wasn't just working, and I was like, you know, everyone kept on saying like, you have all these talents, like I don't understand why by now you're not like the stars. And then I started to research a little bit more of what ADHD was, and I learned how it's not something that goes away. And there was a lot of commonalities, whether it was abuse of alcohol, just always chasing the dopamine hit. And this is what I recognize. Like, okay, I see that, like most entrepreneurs, if you haven't managed the chief executive part of your brain, if you haven't learned how to hone and, you know, take everything else away in your periphery so you can focus on like what is the next leg of work or task at hand that's most prioritizing, then you're going to end up being like, yeah, like, you know, the starving artist, or like, you know, the the method, the brilliant scientist, but like the mad scientist as well. So yeah, like my being able to fly under the radar, this is a big part as to why I created what I call FiTHOP, and I've trademarked as FiTHOP, an acronym also. I love acronyms. I'm a big wordsmith. I rap and I songwrite, and I just see words like I see numbers. I just see them as patterns. And of course, rhythms and rhymes are literally patterns. But FitOp is an acronym. So it's a functional, integrative training and health optimizing program. But what it ultimately is a youth fitness and empowerment program that teaches using this power of rhythm and rhyme. That's like the left brain explanation of it. But I like the more right brain explanation of it, where it's like actually it's elevated learning through the unique synthesis of rhythm and rhyme, of education and physical education and music, where rhythm and rhyme are the guiding stars. And I make reference always to the stars, because at the end of the day, before there was YouTube and television and all of these other things that are obviously taking most of our attention, we had the night sky as entertainment, and we had the light to guide us in those times. And for me, what's guided me throughout my life and how I created FitHop and do the work I do is I was in gymnastics training for 3, 4 days a week, sometimes 5 hours per session. And I also had a love for drums. And my parents actually brought me a drum home from Venezuela, a hand drum, and I played it till I broke it. Like I constantly, all that jittery energy was actually channeling that through things like the training of gymnastics and playing drums. And if it wasn't playing drums, tapping, you know, beats in class, because I'd get in trouble from the teacher for making all this noise, then I'd continue with beatboxing. So I just continue the beat, like just within my voice, like under my voice, and I just continue. I couldn't stop. It's like as if the beat must go on, like the show must go on, and therefore I managed to fly under the radar. But this synthesis of music and fitness is what I called FitHop, and it's basically worked with every group I've ever worked with. And I essentially, if I can start maybe by give it a little context, I think that gives a general idea of sort of me and my relationship to how I came to create this pedagogical approach. I didn't create this approach, my pedagogy. I want to show you, like, because seeing is believing, and a big part of why, I even have, the attention of the groups that I speak with, especially the kids and I work with, is because before I even teach them anything, attempt to teach them anything, I reach them first. Like I say, the difference between teaching and preaching is reaching. So what I do is something that allows them to see that I embody the very lesson that they're about to learn. And therefore, I perform. It's called the FiTHOP anthem. It's just a song. It's only like 90 seconds, but it's really cool. And it ends with the backflip, like lands on the last beat. And I'm there holding the mic like Spider-Man before these kids' very eyes. And it's just amazing to see how they're all like lit up, and they're all ears at that point, and they're intimidated. However, it's also that in that moment that I have that one moment of their respect to then from there on in introduce myself as, hey, I'm no different than you. In fact, I go sit down beside them. I was one of those kids that, and I want you guys all to do this with me. Look at the, your friend beside you, whoever you're sitting next to, and tell them, I can do that too. Or I'm going to be like that too. Or one day when I grow up, I can do that. I will do that too. And why? Because that's literally how I came to be what I am, and why I think anyone ever becomes anything is having a model, the right model to model after and see it to believe it. Because when the imagination is properly directed, and the mind is calmly collected, the dots are easily connected. And that's what teaching and learning are essentially. We're connecting the dots. And what better way than rhythm and rhyme to do just that? Because when we rap, there's already just like the beats got us going like this, because it speaks the language of nature. Boom, da da bop, da ba boom, da ba bop, da ba yin, da da yang, ebonies and ivories. And even the piano itself, 7 white keys, like 7 chakras. It's like 7 plexuses, like 7, like it's there. It's all in music. And then, like we talked about a little earlier, phi, Fibonacci sequence, the 5 black keys, and together the 7 and the 5 create the 12. And what are the 12? The 12 months of the year, the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 sets of ribs of the human body. But it is the very essence of that which we have called God, have called all kinds of different, spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it. It actually is all the universe, the one universe, Latin for song, this one song to which we all belong and have literally been born here on planet Earth to sing along and write our verse. And that's what our life is. It's our verse. So using that metaphor, the song metaphor, and performing music is why instantly there is like a commanding of such respect, and a compelling of, okay, show me how, So this is it here. If you allow me to screen share, Jeanette, I'll just pop up.
Yeah, you're good to go.
Am I good to go?
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. So, like, I guess I have to see from here. Nice.
If I had one wish, it would be to use the power of music to create an entire movement where everyone fits in. A cultural revolution where everyone makes a contribution. We're calling it
What is FiTHOP?
Elevated learning through the unique synthesis of physical education and music, where rhythm and rhyme are the guiding stars.
Why FiTHOP? Because everyone fits. We all belong and have come here to sing along, loud, proud, and strong.
That's the strength of you guys, that you bring the energy to the children. I saw children working together, which I never saw some children do together.
The word education comes from the Latin word educare, which literally means to draw forth from within.
I liked how how all of the kids were so engaged right from the beginning.
Because when I speak to you in rhyme, you actually listen due to a biological mechanism called pattern recognition. It's an active intuition processed with precision. It opens up the heart to receive beyond cognition.
It was fantastic. And your interaction with the kids and everything, it was phenomenal.
I loved it. There's lots of exercise.
How they act to it, how they react to it, it makes a difference.
There's no higher form of education than entertainment, and no better way to increase focus and concentration.
Thousands of students have already experienced the power of our methodology.
I have personally been touched, moved, and inspired to witness some of the shyest students become some of the flyest students, but in the healthy, confident way where they become inspired leaders, conquering their fears and encouraging their peers. Ultimately, everyone feels safe to express their uniqueness by building connection through movement and communication through music.
This is how the brain of ADHD works. It makes associations. So when I talk about our methodology being rhythm and rhyme, and it works every time. Why? Because it speaks to the subconscious mind. You see what's happening there? It's like, yo, whoa, that was not just all a rhyme. That even had a flow. And therefore, the methodology is that when you speak the very language of the way the brain organizes and associates, it's just so much easier to impart the lesson and create what basically church, not to get religious or anything, but what church does, and that is create like a blessing, worship. They call the praise, they call the band, we're worshiping when we're singing together, and it's very, very phonetically close to worship. A worship. Why a worship? Well, because there is a war constantly for our attention. The only two things that exist, the only true currency that exists is our time and our attention. You know what I mean? So there is a war for that, our time and attention, especially in this timeline. We already know economically what's happening, like money, that's already becoming, very blatantly obvious what money is. It's a tool that was created by certain elitists to be able to control and enslave the rest of us. And that's why we have the indoctrinational 12-step program we call the public educational, system. And that's why we have, desks lined up and just basically something that's designed to do the exact opposite of what education is supposed to be. As I said in that video there, to draw forth from within. Let's just break down the etymology of it. Education, educare, Latin for to draw forth from within. And how do we draw it forth from within you? Inspiration. And funny enough, listen to the phonetics. And here's the etymology of the word inspiration. It's where we get respiration. To inspire and expire is the process of breathing, and the breath, or Brahma, the spirit, we're referring to the spiration. Spiri as in spirit, where we get the ritual of spirit or spiritual, and that's what it is. Every classroom, every lesson becomes a blessing when you incorporate not just now words, which is left brain technology, but the actual delivery methodology of rhythm and rhyme, music, or also what's known as incantation. Now you are literally not just casting the spells that literally the English language is designed. If you're not yet, aware of that, oh my God, some people are still blind to even just the words we use. Good morning every morning. Like, huh? We only mourn at graves. Like, why are we talking now? Why are we casting that spell? They say buongiorno. They say calimera, good day, grand rising, But like incantation is the word given to what happens when you add music to words, and it becomes literally like you're casting a spell. And that's actually the word gospel. It is God's spell. So like, not to make the reference to all the music and all the religion, but even the word religion itself, if we look at it, it's to once again, remembering is to from the dismemberment of, our memory, to legion. A legion is like a brigade, a battalion. So hence that worship now makes a lot more sense. There is a great war going on. And it does us no good as educators and teachers who are aware of this war to just point the fingers, because of course we know three are pointing back at us, because we know that there's only one of us out here, and we can't point the finger without having to accept to some degree responsibility. What we can do, however, is the opposite of war. It's not peace. Certainly we don't, zip it up and like go along to get along, and we create. The opposite of war is not peace, it's creation, because war actually destroys. So the whole premise of FiTHOP is taking the musical culture hip hop, which was essentially, I mean, more powerful than even rock and roll, more powerful than rock. It's the most powerful musical culture known to humanity. And that's why literally the CIA had to launch a counterintelligence program, literally to break down and disassemble what was happening in New York at the time, the unification of even like major adversaries in terms of like gangs and stuff like this. Because why? The whole principles of hip hop music were peace, love, unity, and having fun. And there's actually a fifth, a quintessential element most people don't know about and they don't talk enough about. And that fifth element is actually knowledge. So this is where I delved deeper into hip hop, and where I drew inspiration to create FiTHOP is I learned about this knowledge, which they call esoteric, but it's actually not so esoteric anymore. We're in this timeline where it's all here, clicks away online, and we all have access. Dare we, seek to find and ask the great questions like what's happening, and how have we come here? Because only in the question is the answer. So yes, it's a war going on out there, but it's a reflection of a war going on in here. And I can relate to that war because even still to this day, in this moment, I am challenged with the ability to continue to unwrap the layers of this ability. And that's why I call it a gift ability. Don't diss the ability, see it as a gift ability. But the thing is, the gift continues, like it doesn't stop. The process of constantly unwrapping and pulling back layers and layers. I told you one of my practices when I was a kid growing up and why I flew under the radar was gymnastics. The word gymnastics comes from the word gymnos. In Greek, that means naked. And that's actually very much what the practice of yoga, if you look over to the Eastern hemisphere, is attempting to do as well, pulling back all the layers and getting naked in the sense of metaphorically stripped of all the self-condemnation, the self-judgment, all of the things that are in the way, the resistance of you being present and receiving the present of presence itself, because in that is the essence. And going back to the synthesis of, yes, music and physical education, or in this case, the cultures of hip hop and fitness, which started to become very, very popular back in the 80s with bodybuilding, pumping iron, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger and all of your Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme. These are the guys I looked up to. But I kind of also then started seeing the yoga coming, and becoming very popular. And I saw that this bodybuilding was actually part of the problem. It was missing the whole point. It wasn't stripping back the layers. It was adding more and more and more and making them really fancy. And like all these aesthetics were replacing the whole purpose of fitness, which were athletics. You know what I'm saying? So I realized that bodybuilding essentially was, and I experienced this. I'm not just like, giving my opinion. I was in bodybuilding. I actually came third in Ontario at 17 in natural bodybuilding. And I had the opportunity to do like the whole like program of like getting, steroids and becoming like Mr. Universe. Like I was going to be taken on by a team of doctors who were willing to sponsor me because of my genetics. And I said no to it because I knew like there's got to be more to why, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Van Damme, like I always leaned more to the Van Damme, to the Bruce Lee, to like not just having the aesthetics, but the athletics and being able to do something, with this instrument, back to the metaphor of the universe, that this is all music. And if that's the case, then your body literally is an instrument. And I always say, like one of the quotes are, life is like a music sheet. Ask yourself these two questions every morning. Am I on tune? Am I in tune? And am I on beat? Like, and what does it mean to tune your body? It means postural corrective exercise. It means cardiovascular exercise, not just strength training and building muscles and hypertrophy, but it's like, flexibility, range of motion, all of these different elements, which I call the 7 elements for self-development. And that's what the whole FiTHOP program is based under. And there's all psychosomatic pairs. So balance is physical balance, the ability to sustain equilibrium. However, it's also stability. It's stability in the mind. It's like biochemically stability, having the right nutrition, the omega-369, in order to have the insulation on all the wiring of the brains. Because I tell my students that your brain is literally like a big bunch of cables just wrapped up. And imagine all these cables didn't have the actual coating around it. All these cables are going to touch each other and they're going to short circuit. It's going to make all kinds of chaos. It's going to just blow up. So the omega-369s is basically part of your balance and stability neurologically by balancing the amount of carbohydrates, of proteins and fats. And so that's just one element, balance, for example, but it's based on the 7 elements, and each are psychosomatic pairs. Another thing is essentially the whole purpose of the program is to access power. And how do we access? We practice. And therefore, like I said, it's constantly like lifting the layers, and I'm doing it every day. I'm doing it, and I'm always seeking how I'm going to integrate and synthesize new ways. And then I share them, in new lessons through new spoken words and new beats. But the essence of the program is that we actually make the music that we exercise to, which makes it so much more exciting. When we're doing, for example, the coordination element, which corresponds to control or self-control, like self-regulation, we're learning how to just use the very tools of stomping and clapping, where now it's like your body is the instrument. You don't even need drumsticks. They're right here. And you can even use your hands like punches, little something we call KBB, kick beatboxing. So it's not just beatboxing, you're kickboxing, fusing those two together, and you're making the music with your own body. Yeah, I've been, I guess, like going. I'm thinking like time wise, what do we have here? I don't want to I know I came in a little bit late.
Oh no, you're good.
Am I okay?
Yes, we're at 6:45. We have another 15 minutes. I know you have a slideshow to share. I love everything you've been sharing so far, and it's so true. I can see why all the kids connect with you, because you're intelligent, you're a lyricist, you incorporate so many elements into learning that how could they not be inspired? It's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's exactly it, man. Like there's so many different elements, and there's so many different ways. We know, there's the visual, there's the kinesthetic, there's the acoustic, and apparently recently there's the new one that they've called the digital. It's like kinesthetic, but beyond that. And apparently it corresponds to also what they've now confirmed is the 6th sense of the human, 5 sense old model. The 6th sense is proprioception, which is your body's ability to know where it exists in the 3-dimensional axes of space. Now, what I teach is I tell kids, I'm like, y'all know your ABCs, right? And they're like, yeah. And it's another very important thing. We got to relate, meet them on their level, whoever the audience is, whoever we're speaking to, the student. Ultimately, we have to relate to the student in order to bring them up to where the teacher is and impart the knowledge. So the whole, y'all know your ABCs. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to teach you your X, Y, Zs. And what is the X, Y, Zs? I'm like, they're right here. This is hip hop. Yo, yo, yo. And then I'm like, these are XYZ. Start with a fist, like in martial arts. All right. And then you extend your thumb. Yep. That represents your X-axis. You look to the left, you look to the right, where your thumbs are pointing. It also represents the wall in front of you, the plane of the wall in front of you, and the wall behind you. So all your motion that you can do, imagining that you're in front, a cartwheel, jumping jacks, right? The second is your Y-axis, which is your index fingers. And they love doing this. It's like, oh, okay, that's pretty simple. Usually like some kid at this point will be like, oh, loser. And I'm like, oh, we'll get to the loser lesson in a bit. We don't have losers. We either have leaders or learners. So if it's too easy, that's good. Then you're a leader. So, and I'll usually call them fourth, not out. I call them fourth to come and lead with me, because that's basically what they're asking for. They're distracted because they want to be seen. And I totally get that. I was that kid. or if it's too hard for you, then you're a learner. All good. Just team up with a leader. Now all of a sudden the bullies who are like, this is too easy, become like leaders. they feel like responsibility. They recognize they're powerful. And instead of like being the bully, they're instantly transformed. It's alchemical on the spot into a leader. And then the learners can be okay with being learners because now they're being embraced and invited by the leaders, because leaders love having followers. Let's be real. You know what I mean? So then the learners and the leaders come together and unite. It's so beautiful, man. So that there's my ADHD brain going from it. We haven't even finished all three axes, but X, Y in front and back, and then Z is the middle finger. And then you have this shape. And it's like, it's a new kind of yo-yo, you know, like, yeah, exactly. Like part of hip hop, what made it so special is you didn't need anything. Like for the street fashion, you had a bandana, and all of a sudden you were cool. You, instead of like having to pay $500 for Gucci, you know, so and so, you just had a bandana, and now you fit. So this idea of social inclusivity, which is very prominent, it's a message and it's a theme of the 21st century, and it's being hijacked. Let's be honest. Social inclusivity is not, you know, they call it social inclusion, but it's actual like social confusion, the way they're
introducing authentic inclusion.
Yes. Yeah, it's not authentic. Exactly. It's just like a new sort of model that, you know, there's no, everything's just fluid. There's no, you know, the sky is not necessarily blue, you know what I mean? And you're not necessarily a man or a woman. And, you know, roosters don't necessarily, sorry, hens don't necessarily lay eggs, you know, roosters can too. It's like, no, we're confusing certain essences about nature. You can't, you know, get milk from a bull, and you can't get eggs from a rooster. Like there are certain things that we mustn't stray from. That's the Hegelian dialectic. And if we allow ourselves to, with new, you know, words and ideologies, start following along to this spell that they've got us all kind of, you know, they're trying to get us all in, then you know, we're going to be in trouble. And our children already see past this stuff. The only reason why this is working is because parents aren't being the leaders, you know, and they're, why? Because they're following what? The economical system, which is designed to just, you know, pay your bills, and that alone is so hard. Never mind with the price, you know, of food and everything that's being inflated. So, yeah, ultimately, like, you know, using the proprioception, to go back to the sixth sense and the ability to understand where we are in space and time, it's the ultimate way to get instantly to presence. And therefore, whether it's breath work, you know, and just taking a deep breath, but I add to that, doing so, standing on one foot, like Bruce Lee, one of my icons. He would brush his teeth. He wouldn't even brush his teeth without standing on one foot. He used every moment of his living human life to practice. Why? Because that is the access. So I'm going to say kind of, I don't have my slides, by the way, Jeanette. I was going to do the slides thing, but the slides come with all the exercises. I don't know if I want to use that. That slide's sort of more the presentation when I'm actually like teaching. I would rather have something specifically that, you know, but I feel my words are okay.
Absolutely.
You guys
and you have the amazing trailer.
Cool. Yeah.
So it shows everything that you do.
Yeah, right. Like there it is, all encapsulated. If anything, I was thinking if I had some time to set up, I would have set up my loop station, which is a really cool piece of technology that I use, that allows me to literally in seconds, like just drum up a beat using nothing but my mouth, beatboxing. I was going to do that to precursor the 10 rules, because that's actually what I do in the show. I show the kids that, you know, stomp, clap essentially is, and then I invite them to do the same sounds. And then I show them. Now we do the wacky coco, and that's like, what's that? Wacky coco. They laugh. Like, I'm saying wacky coco, I'm just whispering it. But like, yeah, we make a beat there on the spot. And then I teach them the 10 rules of FiTHOP. And why rules? No one likes rules. No one likes school. But there is something so important about both. We go to school to learn how to, I love how Dalai Lama said it, effectively bend the rules. But before we can go into, not break, but effectively bend, because that's what art is. Art is the manipulation of yin and yang. It's really, you know, like bending and playing with what's in front of us, and synthesizing, but not breaking. First, we need to learn the rules. In music, there are scales, there's key signatures. In rhythm, there's being in time, there's time signatures. So it's like learning the rules so that we can play. Life is like a music sheet after all. Are you in tune? Are you on beat? So tune in, get in key, you know, get your rhythm going. What's your rhythm? It's your heart, but how do you get your heart? Instantly through your breath. What we're doing when we're beatboxing is manipulating our breath. So even the idea of manipulation is not a bad thing. Yoga's manipulating the physical body. A mother or father manipulates its child by, telling him maybe a made up story to avoid the kid wanting to be curious and want to go out late or whatever it might be, or go down to. This is a good thing, manipulation, because it's art. It's what art does. However, it's the intention behind it that changes everything. So the 10 rules, now the intention is to teach you rules, but in a way that's artistic and fun. So they're going to stick. You're going to remember them. And not only that, you're going to probably want to go and share them right away with your parents, with whoever it is that's going to listen, because you're saying you've just been inspired. It's come forth from within you. You realize that actually I knew myself before he even told me that rule number 1, you got to have
fun.
Exactly. And then rule number 2, do the best you can
do.
Rule number 3, and this is the beauty of it, is I love you, Jeanette. So they say it out loud. Even teachers, the principals, people want to say it. We want to feel like we were part of the getting it. And that's what it is. No one gets it unless we all get it. No one wins unless we all win. So this idea of social inclusion should be an invitation to rise to the occasion of a creative collaboration that draws such inspiration that we are literally building a whole new nation. So
we found doing that. It's crazy.
Literally, #RefoundEd Education.
But you have a lot of offerings too. Like, I don't want you to leave the space without sharing like the different offerings you have, because I know you do some things around like being a lyricist and music, as well as the whole movement side of things.
Yes.
Can you share like some of the things you offer, and make sure you share your contacts, and I'll put it in the description too, so people can reach out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So FiTHOP is an assembly that could be experienced either in a school or workshops, edutainment workshops, we call them. And either it's a half day or a full day. But I also do have a studio here. It's a lakeside studio. And I do work with not only for local geographically people who want to come and learn to harness their voice and do FiTHOP, the actual mentorship program where I teach the 7 elements for self-development one-on-one. I also do Zoom. I offer Zoom one-on-ones as well. And ultimately, I'm teaching you the same program that I'm teaching to a large platform scale, but on a one-on-one. How do the 7 elements specifically, how can they work in your life? How can they help you tune in? And especially using your voice. Why? Because they say the eyes are the windows to the soul. But what they didn't tell you, and the Sufis know, is that the voice is the soul. So you can measure how free one's spirit or soul is literally in the timbre, the resonance, the sound of their voice. And this is where my work as a sound engineer and also a vocalist and lyricist, and how singing has been a huge part in my own development and tuning in. It's not just physically, learning the mechanics and physicality, but like really harnessing energetically the spirituality of this reality, and how your voice is a huge part of that. I help people find their sound, like their own unique sound as artists, like whether it's writing their next record or helping them, to write and record their whole album. So yeah, whatever it is, you can find me on online. It's FiTHOP.com, and my socials all across the board. It's FiTHOP. And also stay tuned for my Connecting the Dots podcast, which launches at the end of this month, 21st. Solstice is going to be special day because I've been preparing, putting a lot of work into that. Ultimately, even FiTHOP was me connecting the dots. I just connected the dots of a movement called hip hop and how fitness had become very popular in the contemporary times. But connecting the dots is what my podcast is called. And it goes even deeper, and it explores on a more broader and wider range, who, what, where, and why we are. It's really just an investigation, a dialogue, asking the right questions so we can answer the great questions. Why are we here? And I'm always looking. I'm always happy to interview, other people who are on that level, who are also inquisitive and philosophical. So I'm really excited to share some of the amazing interviews that I've had. And yeah, can look out for that. That'll be on YouTube, Connecting the Dots, also on Spotify and all that stuff. Connecting the Dots with Niko.
That's amazing. And I want to thank you for inspiring the summit. It was Niko, our meeting. He was like, hey, we should do it. And I just said, yes, we should. And then next thing you know, we just hit the ground running. And yeah, and you know, every time we do this, it'll grow and grow and grow. And thank you so much for just being that mentor and inspiration that you know, young people and adults even.
You are very, very welcome. Jeanette, honestly, an idea is only as good as its execution. So it means so much to me that you took that idea and you execute, you like you said, hit the ground running. And even if it starts on just this grassroots level here and now, it's going to only grow from here. And trust me, I told you that. I will be there by your side. I will back you because I know what you're about and what you're here to do. And I'm sure everyone in this sphere is up to the same thing because the law of resonance is real. You know what I mean? Birds of the same feather flock together. So I got all of you. Reach out. Anything you need, I'm here. Thank you again for this opportunity. Much love.
That gave me chills. And you're so right. Honestly, all of the amazing, positive people are just gravitating to each other naturally. And I can't wait for all of us to grow together. And till next time, everyone, thank you so much for coming and have a great night.
Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Your energy is so great.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. Have a blessed night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.